Okay, great. Yeah, so I'm just going to do some quick opening remarks. Good morning, everyone. Selamat pagi, that is in Malay, in Singapore. And good evening if you are dialing in from California or somewhere in the US. Welcome to Silicon Valley Access Private Limited and Pitch Global's very first Asia time zone event. We're delighted to have all of you join us, and especially we have lined up a really impressive slate of speakers, movers and shakers who will contribute their wisdom and their insights on Asia and Silicon Valley. The topic today is how GPs, LPs, CVCs, family offices, and founders can scale with cross-border capital. My name is Sharon Sim. I am the co-founder and chairperson of Silicon Valley Access. It is a Singapore spin-off of the San Francisco-based Pitch Global Group, a longtime affiliate of the California governor-backed funding and mentoring program. And we're also an investor founders network that has supported companies in raising more than $1 billion. And I believe we're at our 10th year, right? We're celebrating our 10th anniversary. Excel, Casey?
Right? Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so it's a milestone year for us too. So we're very excited that now we're crossing the Pacific Ocean, coming to Singapore and doing this with everyone. My journey into investments started about 20 years ago now when an in-the-public subsidiary acquired my first PR tech company. I am born in Singapore. I was born in Singapore. I spent the last few decades building bridges, helping many Asian and US companies launch and grow on both sides of the Pacific. And I'm also the co-founder of a Southeast Asian foundation called Kampong Collective. And for years, I've been a dedicated member, a mentor and entrepreneur in residence at Pitch Global, including co-hosting a number of events with TechCrunch, USA Today. And so when the opportunity came up for me to help launch Silicon Valley Access, it was just a natural next step in a deepening partnership. So I'm very happy that all of you can join us today for our very first event. And also a special shout out to Serene Chinchuan from Quas, who helped us play a big part in helping us launch our private limited in Singapore. So just to share with you a little bit more about Silicon Valley Access, is designed to create a true two-way investment bridge, attracting capital from Singapore and other Asian hubs into San Francisco and the Bay Area, while also channeling Silicon Valley innovation and investment back to Asia. So we wanted, I know a lot of it is already happening, but we want to do it more and accelerate this for everyone who can benefit from this. So with that, I'll hand the floor over to Excel. A little bit more about Excel. He is the CEO of Pitch Global Group and the head of the California governor-backed CVC Accelerator. Excel will share his extensive experience in the Silicon Valley CVC ecosystem, his work with the California Infrastructure and Economic Development Bank, his success attracting investments to the region, and his track record as an LP in top-tier funds like IVP during his time leading the RVC CVC fund. All right, Excel, the floor is yours.
Thank you so very much, Sharon. Good evening, good morning, wherever you are in the world. Actually, Singapore is ahead of us, right? So I would love to see what is happening tomorrow in our lives. If you can already tell us, you could be fortune tellers for us. So Sharon, as you mentioned, I actually sat basically on every side of the table. I did PE deals, I did venture investment, I have serial entrepreneur and had the pleasure together with Casey the last 10 years to basically vet about 4,500 startup companies, mentor over 10%. But we also launched last year an education program for investors, which is basically highlighting how to actually quantify investment decisions. And so we are playing on various fields. We love entrepreneurship. You can hear from my accent, I am actually not originally from the United States, but I immigrated in 1991, loved every second of it, and will never look back. But I learned a lot what it means to transition between foreign countries and the US and what problems exist, so we can be very helpful on these subject matters. Without any further ado, I would like to introduce our first interview partners, which will do the interview among themselves. It's our fireside chat that we are actually doing. And Priya Panse and Jean Koch. Priya, you are with Blackrock, and Jean Koch is with Deutsche Bank. Which of the two giants wins? The floor is yours.
I will say it's a tough battle because excuse me. It is a tough battle between the two, largely because Jean, I would say, is winning. I recently resigned from Blackrock, so I think Jean definitely keeps the hat there. But anyway, a big good evening from California and good morning from Singapore and across Asia. My name is Priya Panse. I've spent around 12 years at Blackrock across the US, UK, and Asia, working at that very intersection of investment strategy, institutional client engagement, as well as alternatives. It's been fascinating to have a front row seat as to how global allocators think and be a partner on their portfolio decisions. At the same time, as a Singaporean myself, being born and raised in Singapore, I have watched Singapore transform itself from being a tax-efficient financial center into something that is much more consequential, a genuine operating base for wealth governance and global capital deployment. So one of the questions that I do get from time to time is, how many family offices are we talking about in Singapore? Well, if you asked me this question back in 2020, the answer would have been 400. Now, fast forward just 4 years, that number has 5x to over 2,000 by the end of 2024. Hong Kong currently has about 2,700. Together, just these two cities, Singapore and Hong Kong, they make up about Asia's 2/3 of the total number of family offices there. So a very consequential number, if you ask me. The other question that I often get is deal size. How much capital is it that Asian family offices are deploying into direct deals? Now, S&P Global actually just reported that the global family office direct investments more than doubled in 2025 to about 13 billion across about 160 transactions. Now, this is not patient capital that is sitting on the sidelines. This is increasingly sophisticated, regionally conscious family offices who are actively hunting for their co-investment opportunities. But here's the puzzle, right? If capital is flowing, if the appetite is there, if Singapore is that bridge between Asia and global markets, then why is it that Silicon Valley founders and VCs might be getting it a little wrong when they're pitching to family offices? Now, the answer lies in three things: access, trust, and alignment. To help us decode this from the private wealth lens, I am delighted to welcome a dear friend, Jean Koch. Jean works as a private banker at Deutsche Bank in Singapore. She's actually spent more than a decade sitting across the table from Asian family offices, high net worth families, institutional wealth, and those people making those billion-dollar decisions. Jean, thank you for being here. And fair warning to everyone listening, Jean is usually located in Singapore, but today is dialing in from Mumbai, where she's on a business trip. In our prep call right before this, we realized we had to prioritize either Jean's face or Jean's voice. We clearly took the obvious choice of prioritizing her voice. Jean, thank you again for joining us all the way from Mumbai, and that too at 6 a.m. in the morning. Over to you, Jean.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Or good afternoon, sorry, good evening, wherever you are. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, we hear you great.
Okay. Again, I apologize for not being able to turn on my video otherwise, as the connection's a little bit spotty here in Mumbai. So thank you so much, everyone, for having me. It's so great to see you virtually. Priya first approached me with this. I was thrilled because I've never done something like this before. It's so great to meet from different parts of the world. So thanks again for having me. A little bit of introduction for myself, as Priya mentioned. I've been in the private wealth business, straight out of college. That's maybe totaling about 12 years now. So career has brought me through I started with a local bank in Singapore by the name of DBS, and followed by Credit Suisse. So interesting stories there, and then which has now led me to Deutsche Bank. And in this space, I have always assumed the position of the role of a relationship manager, servicing high net worth individuals, family offices, institutions as well. So thanks again for having me.
Great, thank you, Jean. To start us off, if you had to choose only 3 words to describe what Asian family offices want from Silicon Valley today, what would those 3 words be and why?
Wow. I think the biggest priority, and this is something I hear it constantly, which resonates with a lot of family offices, is access, access, access. And access comes in various forms. How I have seen my clients gain access to Silicon Valley was through different methods, right? So some of them have been quite fortunate to be directly on the cap table. While some go through third-party funds or fundraising platforms and get access probably with a few layers behind through maybe SPVs or other vehicles to get access maybe in more. That's number one. Number two, well, what I want is trust. Asian families tend to be so much more relationship led. They really need, because as an actually on the ground, and they really need to know exactly and behind the opportunity, what's the degree of due diligence done, and whether everyone's assigned incentives are aligned. That's number two. And I would say the third one would maybe be control, but not the sense of running the company, but definitely a lot of visibility, transparency, and circling back earlier, full transparency in being able to choose to directly friends or alongside trusted partners.
That is really spot on, Jean. I think families don't want just generic access. They want curated access to the people, to the deals that they ordinarily would not have access to. So, let's for a minute touch on the overall growth of LPs in Singapore, particularly family offices in Singapore. You mentioned that the family office structure itself had grown from about, 400 to 2,000. From your perspective, what does that growth tell us about the ecosystem of Singapore's family offices?
Yeah, indeed. The growth of family offices in Singapore over the past 5 years has been truly staggering. And I'm actually very proud to work right in the thick of it all. It's Singapore become not just a booking center, but it has become an operating base for family wealth, governance, and global review. Families choose Singapore for stability, rule of law, tax and regulatory clarity, lots of talent, and proximity to surrounding growth markets. But growth does not mean, of course, every family office behaves the same. Are highly institutionalized, a full-blown investment team, external hires, or others are still very much founder, family, principal led.
Yeah, really, really well said, Jean. I think the ecosystem is not just consolidating around even just one playbook. It's now starting to also fragment into multiple tiers of sophistication, mandates, ticket sizes, even appetite for governance. And I do think that's a even harder operating platform for founders to navigate. But it's also the honest truth about the market right now. And it naturally raises a follow-up question. If these families are getting more sophisticated and increasingly institutionalized, what exactly are they doing with their alternatives portfolio? Now, BlackRock had published a global family office report back in 2025, and they found that about 42% of the any allocation portfolios is essentially alternatives. So when a Silicon Valley founder or a VC hears that, they think, great, private markets, that's what they want. But what are they missing here?
Well, as you mentioned, most of the family offices who have built a diverse portfolio would always have a allocation to the alternative space. Now, what they get through private banking platform, or maybe not just private bank, have other platforms that have fractionalized access to the alternative market, is, I would say, predominantly private equity, private credit, venture, secondaries, kind of fund access that are managed by a very reputable GP. So that is quite commonplace that we see in our clients' alternatives portfolio. But what they really want for them, especially those who have sophistication, is direct deal by deal access, and especially to US and the Europe opportunities. Opportunities in Asia, especially within Southeast Asia, they tend to have their own networks. But just getting that access across the Pacific is something that they would really value.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's definitely a good point there. One behavior that we're observing in real time is that families are not just being selective about which funds they join, but they're increasingly building their own direct investment capabilities. In fact, S&P Global, they were the ones that published that same data point of like family offices going direct has more than doubled in 2025 just in 1 year. So I guess the question isn't will they write a check? It's about what makes them confident enough to write a check alongside a trusted partner. So why is it that direct deals and co-investments are becoming so attractive, and what makes them hard?
So your question just got a bit fuzzy at the end. So sorry.
Yeah, the ultimate question was, why is it that direct deals and co-investments are becoming attractive for them, and what makes it hard?
Okay, your question was why are direct access and co-investments for them?
Yeah, why are direct deals becoming attractive?
Oh, I see. Uh, I think some of them, well, firstly, they would have, mm, they they want the fee structure to be as possible.
Yep.
And some of them, obviously, with who can afford that kind of ticket size that would place them on a table. That's something that they want as well. Um, and of course, some of them can be very specific on the kind of industry or business model that uh, they want the exposure to. They want exposure
Yep.
to.
Yep.
And some of them are obviously who are again more sophisticated would have some sense of the valuation entry level that they will gain access to. So I think for all these reasons, they do want kind of direct
Yeah.
access, and I would say they definitely do have the to
Yeah.
to allocate directly.
Yeah. I was actually chatting with a friend who is the CEO of Invext. They're trying to democratize access between the different players here. And she was actually quoting fees to be a really key aspect of things because if you think about what the AI boom has done, everyone from Asia till Africa is really excited about getting access, but they usually get access to pre-IPO deals in a fund structure, which is typically having very high fees. So going direct helps them from a fee perspective for sure, but it definitely increases the diligence, governance, legal structures. That becomes a little harder. So I'm gonna wrap things up with a final question for you, Jean. If you think about just the overall, market when it comes to having a trusted partner locally for your global deal, how do you think US founders should interpret the fact that a lot of APAC families are highly global? They have about a 76% global footprint in their portfolio. Is this an optimistic nature that you observe in portfolios from your clients as well?
Sorry to repeat what you just said. So is your question whether my observation of sorry, can I trouble you to do that?
Yeah, I guess like to rephrase, what do you observe of the US allocation in your clients' portfolios when it comes to private markets venture deals?
Oh, wow, it's very little. I can't even put a number to that actually. I would say that it's to me right now, especially if consider what I mentioned earlier, but about getting access via alternative fund, the heavyweight US, you definitely have a decent allocation there. But if I go again to direct access or like very specific deals, I think that represents a very little slither of their portfolio, but definitely space that they want to continue building.
Okay, that's amazing. Well, Jean, thank you so much. That was incredibly useful. The takeaway I'm hearing is that while it is a small sliver of the portfolios, Asian family offices are still looking for direct Silicon Valley exposure. They're looking for curated access, trusted relationships, and co-investment opportunities where there is that real alignment. And this is exactly why the Asia to Silicon Valley bridge matters. Thank you, Jean, and thank you, Pitch Global. Back to you guys.
I would love to introduce Sasha Johnson at this point in time. Sasha and I are going back close to 20 years, I would almost say, right?
I know, yeah. And we're still friends. It's good.
And Sasha, first of all, I would like that you introduce yourself. And you're doing great work right now. Also, you just concluded a big conference, which you were in your, 22nd year? And
23rd, yeah.
Yeah, and you're also operating now, again, a venture fund. You can never let that go, right? And then we start talking about certain aspects of raising funding across borders. So, Sasha, the floor is yours.
Right, but before I do, will you tell me who is in the audience so that I understand?
Should I read everybody to you? We have
No,
PE.
just tell me mostly entrepreneurs, funds.
Entrepreneurs, PE, venture investors. We have a very mixed audience.
Okay, all right. Well, that sounds good because venture capital is all about the mixed audience. People always ask me how venture capitalists become who they become. How do you get in venture capital? And there are many ways to do it. Mine was through entrepreneurship. I was a CEO of a telecom company. And then, of course, the dot-com bust happened. And when nobody was investing, and that's when we decided to look outside the US, maybe invest in several companies. And then we crossed the border, but entrepreneurs wanted to know that it's a venture capital fund. They knew the word combination, but there was no private money. And that is something that has changed some since. But I was listening to the wonderful presentation of Priya before, and I heard that family offices like to invest directly mostly, and I don't know. I won't recommend that because maybe in the later stage, and if that's in the field you know really well, like real estate, of course, go and make your private deals. But in the early stage of venture capital, you do need to have somebody who understands the intricacies of that particular process. Because when we're talking about AI replacing all the jobs, and if you ask me, I say the first group to go will be lawyers, right? Then my son thinks the next group will be teachers. But if you talk to lawyers or teachers, they of course will tell you that no, their group will stay. And I will tell you the same thing. Maybe if you're an entrepreneur, they'll say, we don't need a venture capitalist. Why? Well, like, why are they sitting on my board? Just give me money and leave, right? I know what to do. So I beg to differ because there are so many details of what makes a successful fund successful. But anyway, so that's like an introduction.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. The other day I had an entrepreneur and I said, not every money is good money. You want actually an entrepreneur that can actually pull and push you versus I need more management team. Little startup companies, you have the CEO, you have a chief marketing officer, but if you can get 4 brilliant guys on your board, they also give you money and they can give you advice. They can push you into certain companies. This is the real McCoy. So tell us a little bit about your perspective raising funding from other countries for a US VC firm. What are the aspects you have experienced? What counts? Do they operate differently? Do they look for something else than a standard LP in the US? What's your experience?
Yeah, actually, I've been to Singapore 3 times before COVID, I have to say. Maybe things have changed. Because there was a period of time when Singapore was a very active LP in Silicon Valley. There was this big fund, Temasek, and they invested in all the top funds. And then there was a period of time when Singapore government decided they need to attract money, and they were looking for people to go in and invest in Singapore. And here's the challenge with that. Not every company is designed to go and conquer Silicon Valley. There are plenty of startups that should stay local. And they can replicate in a better way maybe some businesses that already have been proven and tested in Silicon Valley, but attract the local market. But then there are companies that really need to go outside. Like if you look at the small country of Israel, all their high tech is very attractive for the US because that's their market. Now in Singapore, I know that the pharmaceuticals as an industry is really well developed. But when it comes to high tech, it's well, maybe it's created by design, but I think that the problem is that they really didn't forge relationships with Silicon Valley in a way that somebody with a big experience will know which companies to take outside Singapore and which companies to continue grooming in Singapore. So in my experience being a cross-border investor, that's what we did. We had, say, 10 companies, people like that's number 10. Actually, we had 14, but let's say 10. And out of those 10 companies, 8 of them were groomed in the domestic market. But 2 of them, we really brought out and brought it to Silicon Valley, and that's where they got to the unicorn status, and we eventually sold them. So I would say I would love to work with local investors in Singapore, but family offices are challenging in a sense that, as all we know, that venture capital, we would call it a risky investment, right? And if you're a family office, managers of the family office, those gatekeepers, they need to preserve the capital first, right? And then, so what they call the alternative investments, maybe they will put something aside, but then they attempted to do it themselves and invest and work with the companies. But it's a whole different animal. It's a whole different skill set of the game. Like I will not be good at working in the family office, preserving somebody's capital, right? But I will be good knowing how to work with early stage companies where they're like a naughty child. They're fabulous, they're wonderful, and they drive you nuts. And you need to know when to say no and when to step back and let them run with the idea, even though, oh my God, he's gonna fall, well, well, anyways. So that's pretty much to summarize this particular statement. I think it's important to for local family offices and authorities to find the partners in Silicon Valley. I'm talking about venture capital, right? And maybe allocate a part of their portfolio to invest in that venture fund with understanding that that fund will operate in both geographies. It's not that you just put money in Silicon Valley. No, we invest in Singapore companies, and some of them will make sense to be brought over to Silicon Valley. And in that sense, your initiative, what you're doing, Axel, with Casey and Sharon, I think it's really important. It's really important.
So you have worked with a lot of legends in Silicon Valley. One of them is Pete Johnson that gave the award on your event. The other one is Tim Draper. Tell us about
Bill Draper. Oh, Peach's partner is Bill Draper, the father.
Yeah. But
my fund was with Tim Draper.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So,
you raised funding with Tim Draper. Tell us about this experience.
Well, back then, DFJ was one of the top 5 leading funds in the Valley, and they were the only ones who would dare to invest outside the U.S. And by then, they already had the network had funds in Israel, Korea, Vietnam, London, Brazil, and they were struggling with Eastern Europe because, as you, Axel, know, after the Soviet time, it's hard to understand what's happening. And especially some of those countries kind of go back and forth. We're capitalists, no, we're not capitalists, we're not discussing politics. And that's what we decided to do, that we will explore that crazy world and see if we can find entrepreneurs that will benefit from our investments. And then, and another thing I discovered that, when you talk to VC founders in this country, in Silicon Valley, they will all tell you, oh, stay away from the governmental money. Governmental money is awful. Horrible, ugly, strings attached, only private capital. But if you look at the history of the US venture capital, the first funds were financed by the government. And Tim Draper's first fund had that SBC loan, right? So in that sense, in my experience, if you know how to work with the local authorities, it's okay to take the money from the fund of funds that maybe was established with the help of the government. And I know that in Singapore, the government actually is encouraging various programs. So our funds were a combination of private capital and some of the state entities that were serving as fund of funds. But it's a whole different story.
Yeah.
They're so different, private capital.
And by the way, if you wanted to invest into Russian talent, today's investment mantra would be Israel. There are 2.5 million Russians fueling the innovation factories in Israel, right? So the talent in Russia is unbelievable, right? And it was a good move to have done that.
There were many waves of migration out of there, and now because of whatever is happening in Russia right now, all enormously talented people find themselves in Europe and in Singapore and in Silicon Valley. And actually, one of the people who I know really well, like Sergei Belousov, he was, I think, the first Russian who built an empire in Singapore. And through his eyes, I just know what it means to hire local people and how to work with the government and go through all of that. So there are similarities into bureaucracy around the world. And then there is something very specific to the Asian attitude toward entrepreneurship. But it's all doable if you work with people who have done it before and who are looking for solutions instead of concentrating on hurdles.
I could go on for hours with you. Unfortunately, we have a very tight program tonight. Tonight, I have to play in 2 different time zones. We will continue the conversation on other events. We have a big tech event in October. I hope I can invite you there also. Love to see you there. And I thank you so much for joining us. I hope you stay a while and you make good connections here. Thank you, Sasha. It's a great pleasure.
Thank you, and we will be in touch. And if anybody wants to talk to me, Axel knows how to find me.
Absolutely. You cannot run away. Thank you so much. And now my second guest is Abhishek Sood.
I'm on. Good to see you again.
So Abhishek, tell us a little bit, what's your role at Applied Materials? What are your tasks with? And give an intro right now in what do you need most from entrepreneurs?
Sure. And again, given this conversation is being recorded, and I had mentioned this to Kostov as well yesterday. I can tell you what my day job is, but a lot of opinions expressed here, I have to make this statement, are my personal opinions and not necessarily on behalf of Applied Materials. Of course, I wear the Applied Materials hat. And the reason I have to caveat that is because we are a large global Fortune 50 company. So, opinions expressed here are largely my own, but obviously I work in the organization. So my name is Abhishek. I'm part of the CTO organization within Applied. The CTO led by a gentleman called Om Nalamasu is a forward-leaning business within Applied, which focuses a lot on technology innovations, either by incubating and building new businesses or by investing in new companies. So I'm part of the ventures team. I've been here 3 years. I've been, after a small stint as an entrepreneur and then working with IBM Research and doing my tour of duty with Morgan Stanley in investment banking. For the last 2 decades, I've just been a technology investor, venture growth, private equity, structured investing. And as a result of that, have had the fortune of investing across ecosystems. Here, I focus a lot on our investments in Gen AI, robotics, software, increasingly on fabless chip semi companies, and I'm also spending some time in the broader AR and photonics ecosystems. We have a very active presence in Singapore, which is why this event was super interesting to me. Actually, on Friday, I am flying to Singapore and I will be there all of next week. I have, so if there are folks who are dialed in from Singapore who want to, meet up or reach out, feel free to. I can I can share my email and phone number, and schedules permitting, I'd be happy to meet. Applied Materials, we are a large global Fortune 50 company. We have depending on the day, of market cap of about 300 to 350 billion. We think of us as the picks and shovels that's driving the entire AI revolution. So, we make the equipment at a very high level, which is then used to make the NVIDIA, AMD, Intel chips, on top of which all the LLMs run. So in some ways, we are the infrastructure ultimately that is driving the global Gen AI revolution. And I'm honored to be a part of the organization and invest on behalf of the organization in companies that obviously we think will be good investments, but would also be strategically relevant for Applied Materials. So, hopefully that gives you an overview. As the only other thing to probably add is, as a career venture capitalist, private equity investor, I've done about 60, 70 investments, 25 exits. I've been fortunate to have been associated with some marquee names such as Databricks, Stripe, Samsara, Rubrik, Quantenna, some good private names here. So, grateful for the journey I've had thus far.
Absolutely fantastic outcomes. Now, when you have successful exits, the multiple of or the ROI of your investment plays a big role. This has become more challenging. And what would you tell our Asian listeners from PE funds, LPs that want to invest in Silicon Valley, in particular into the hot topic of AI? How do they can get still into the game without overpaying and still make the fantastic exits that you actually generated in your career so far?
Reach out to us, partner with us.
So you're looking for co-investors. Is that what you're saying?
Look, co-invest, we have some fund structures as well. I'm happy to put my email is my first name _ last name at amatch.com. So, it's Abhishek _ Sood. My cell is country code 1 646 673 6999. The reason I'm giving this is also my WhatsApp. I also have a work cell which I can give later. It's in my signature. But look, I wasn't being facetious there. We do partner a lot with family offices, and we have actively co-invested with family offices. And the reason it wasn't meant to be a comment in jest. I think, look, there are two ways you can tap into the AI revolution in the Silicon Valley or in the Bay Area, right? And you can either go early or you can go late. If you're going late, then yes, you can, through hundreds and hundreds of SPV managers get access to some late stage deals, pay some carry and markups of fees and fees on fees, and get access to these so-called hot companies like the Anthropics and the OpenAIs, etc. If you have to go early, then having a really good understanding of the technical depth, product market understanding, the background of the founders. Is there, will this market pick up? What the competitive landscape is? Doing that kind of diligence becomes critical. And, the only way then you end up making money is if look, in stepping back, nobody has a crystal ball in investing. Everything I'm saying today could be, irrelevant 3 years from now. But what I can say is if you do the necessary homework, then at least psychologically you won't fault yourself for not having done the work before investing. And I think, it gives people a different perspective. So that's my personal view on investing. Always step back, think, understand, the market dynamics, understand the differentiation, understand, at early stage, a lot of it is just the quality of the entrepreneurs you're betting. So, to wrap it up, I think if you can, for the family offices, if you can align with good investors, I think that is a good way to get access. I think to the extent there are larger family offices, I'd encourage you to make the trips because, oftentimes if you're just hearing a pitch on Zoom, then, it's just not the same as being on the ground. And sometimes, there's a saying when Sandhill started, if Sandhill companies were reaching New York, there used to be a saying, okay, what's wrong with this company that they can't raise money from Sandhill? So, one piece of advice I'll give you is of all these companies, if they're suddenly trying to raise money in Singapore, then I would step back and say, all right, look, why haven't these guys been able to tap? So, be selective. Don't believe necessarily in the hype. There is a lot of hype on AI and deep tech. And look, all you need is, depending on your investment philosophy, 3 or 4 big hits versus 10 investments, all of them kind of middling. But, stitching it back to Applied, we do have smaller funds in Asia where we have partnerships. And if folks want to explore, of course, if someone is writing a 100, 200, 300K kind of a check, then, maybe in a personal capacity, I can refer them, but for Applied Materials, that would not be the right partnership. But if there are folks in this audience who are comfortable writing 5 to 50, $100 million checks, or at least a few $1 million, they can definitely reach out to me and we can explore ways we could collaborate.
Now, the critical question would be, since you already pointed out, and that was an important point from Sasha, that family funds typically don't have the manpower or the insight for all the due diligence work required, especially when it comes into deeper technology fields. Are you willing to share your due diligence report? If somebody says, here, I have $10 million, I'm looking for a good AI deal.
Well, yeah, if someone has $10 million and we're doing 10, and if we think that partner can bring value, then I think we'd be open to the conversation. I don't want to, as I said, Axel, I cannot make representations on behalf of Applied, so it has to
Yeah.
be on a case-by-case basis. But, there are different ways to be creative here. We could get on a call and share our thoughts. We also have to believe that the other party brings something to the table besides just capital. But, if it's something where they can be helpful to us, I think conceptually, we see no harm. Because I anyways do that as a living when one of my portfolio companies is raising, I'll get on calls from my portfolio companies with at least 10 or 15 different VCs. So it's not something that's alien. It just becomes a function of, all right, if someone is willing to show commitment, then yeah, we'll be helpful. We can't breach, and I want to make it very clear. There's a lot of analysis that we do, which is very specific and relevant to applied materials that we can't share. But anonymizing that and talking high level, I think is something we'd be able to share.
Thank you so much. Let me ask the last question. If I put you on the poker table of AI, would you put more your money down on a foundation, LLM-based new technology company, or on wrapper technology? Where do you think the best bets would be?
My view would be on the foundational side. Okay. Different folks could have different views. I think ultimately I've cut my teeth as an investor on the infrastructure layer. I think the infrastructure layer is usually a lot more sticky, a lot more durable. And if you control the guts, if you control the infrastructure, then you can build the app stack on top. But if you come from the app side, building the infrastructure effectively becomes a lot tougher. And it's showed in some of my career moves. The reason I joined Applied is because I see it as a very robust infrastructure company driving the Gen AI or the AI revolution. So, and to answer your question, why? Look, I think longer term, I see the companies like the Anthropics, the OpenAIs, etc., effectively becoming the utility-like companies, right? Like the move from on-prem to the cloud created companies like created platforms like AWS, Azure, GCP, etc. So from that perspective, I think these frontier models, China will have its own flavor, whether it's DeepSeek or some flavor of Qwen or one of these Alibaba tools. Maybe there are some more sovereign plays. Europe probably will have Mistral, and then we'll have like a few independent guys, and then Google Gemini is rock solid, some from the hyperscalers. And the reason I say that is, each of these foundational models are building vertical domain capabilities. So if you look at what Claude's done, Claude started it, Claude's the Anthropic model. It was first just a chatbot prompt tool. Then they came up with Claude Code, which is today disrupting the lives, unfortunately, of many software programmers, but can literally do coding at a reasonably technical level, maybe not super advanced, but it'll get there. They've come up with their own cybersecurity tool, which can breach and find breaches in security. So will there be a place for the wrapper companies? I think the answer is yes. There's always a place and a room for customization and for addressing a niche. But I think you will see consequential companies. I mean, I think, look, these will be easily trillion-plus market cap companies if they continue to execute the way they do. The key question is, how do they manage their burn because, to train such complex models, they just need massive and massive compute. But that's my view. And again, it's a
Actually,
personal view. It's not the applied materials view because, I can't, I don't want anyone to trade on any of these
things,
perspectives.
absolutely. But to your point, 2 years ago, we saw a coding company pitching their wrapper technology about code generation. Today, I look at my output at Grok. Why would I go on a wrapper when I can get the answer from Grok right away? So you're feeling that the markets could erode on the wrappers by the core companies because it's easy for them to turn the switch and put the other things also into their models at the same time. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's one person's opinion, but that'd be my view.
Yeah. Abhishek, I appreciate so much that you also came at a later point here in for California time, and looking forward to many more interactions also to you. October, we have a great event around TechCrunch. Hope to see you there, and we continue
Yeah,
this
would love to
wonderful.
be on that panel. I think Costa's been telling me about something at Semicon West, so happy to. I think for the folks here, Costa and Axel really work hard to spread awareness around a lot of global how CVCs function around very relevant themes. So it's a pleasure being associated with you. And for the family office folks in Singapore. You guys can, I can, I already shared my email and cell, but just drop me an email, my first name underscore last name at amat.com, and I'll try and meet you when I'm there next week.
Again, thank you so much. And now we are switching gears and going to a great Asian company. James Long is representing Grasshopper. James, I welcomed you to the program, and we are looking forward to discussing with you the various opportunities.
Thank
Are
you,
you here?
Axel. Thanks for the introduction. Can you hear me properly?
Yes. Great. So I probably wouldn't do justice to introduce your company. I know you're doing algorithmic trading, which I have read on your website. You're also holding money for venture capital funds, right? That like to make more money out of the money they have. So tell us about it, James.
Sure. Let me give you the cliff notes. So we started off as a proprietary trading firm, trading only the firm's capital. And this was in 2006. We were born in the fires of a big transition in the listed financial market. So I think most of you might not be so aware, but somewhere in the 2000s, pit trading, the old dinosaur activities of yelling and shouting prices and trading that way, evolved into electronic trading. I think I feel like I've compared this to the time where horses were transitioned to cars as the main point of transport. And indeed, I think in the last 20 years, the whole trading environment or exchange traded activities has completely evolved. Right now, we've evolved from a proprietary trading company into an asset manager. So we started building our own technology for trading. We've evolved into asset manager, and now we have a number of funds that are domiciled and set up in Singapore to help invest other capital, investors' capital as well. So we're fairly new. We've only been running the asset manager for like about 2 years. But as you've hinted at, we've also taken some GP investment into the firm in order to accelerate our growth. I think in the States, it's very, let's just say, well known that the Citadel Securities and firms like that dominate the listed trading space. And that is genuinely our goal in Asia, where I feel like we're maybe 10 to 15 years behind that level of development.
So you're taking money in from family offices, high net worth individuals, and institutions at this point in time. And what are they looking for? More money?
Well, I can't deny that everybody looks for returns, right? I think that's the baseline for anybody. But I think just like Priya and Jean shared earlier, yes, as a fairly nascent asset manager, size is rather important. So the largest institutions usually have a tenure and size minimums in order to participate. So majority of our investors are currently high net worth and family offices. We do have some institutions that look for alternative investments because the nature of our trading is very short term and very high velocity. So we trade a lot a day. We have over 50,000 trades a day. We trade over 1 billion in securities every single day. And our holding periods tend to be fairly short in our flagship fund. So the returns are a lot more deterministic than you would say a traditional asset manager's returns are. And it's a little bit different. We've partnered that also with a fixed income fund. But I think, let me just focus back on your original questions. I think investors here are looking for, as was shared earlier, access, but also trust. I think the main difference in Asia is that they want to see you face to face, eye to eye, and actually be able to trust that their funds are taken care of. As the family office mandate tends to be wealth preservation, I feel like the investment mandate tends to be very barbell, right? The large majority are safe, conservative vehicles, but Asia made its wealth primarily on knowing people and placing bets on people and businesses. So there's the other end of the spectrum where, as also has been elucidated, people want direct access. People want to be able to look founders in the eye and say, I trust you. I want to know more about your business and participate more. So there's these two ends of the spectrum. The rest of the story really is that a lot of Asia is fairly new wealth. So we're coming to terms with, more and more structured products and other more complex investment vehicles. For example, ETF trading, which is a fair bit a staple in listed market exposure in the West, is actually nascent in Asia and only big in really like 3 markets.
Now, have you, just out of curiosity, to gauge the trust is an asset in itself, right? We're living in actually a trust recession, I would like to say. Now, the ultimate trust building you find in Saudi Arabia and in UAEs, where it takes you sometimes years to do business. How is the trust profile in Asia?
Well, I would say that the deepest pockets genuinely take their time to build trust. Even when I was raising GP funds, and some of my investors are very well capitalized, I deliberately went out of my way to create a structure that would enable trust and information sharing at a very high degree, crafting out some projects that would actually demonstrate the capabilities and the track record of the firm. The nature of high frequency trading, unfortunately, is very complex and it's very hard for anybody to ascertain. So the expertise on evaluating the merits of the deal, it takes time and takes energy and takes effort to understand. So that was a cost that I had to pay personally. So I wouldn't say it's as long term as in the Middle East, but I do say it can take some time. So months to a year would be my guess. And of course, there is a need to bridge the gap, right? You have to take the initiative somewhat.
Yeah, I experienced myself. Japan is a good example. Takes often until 6 o'clock in the morning, late night dinners and lots of sake in order to build the necessary trust. And by the way, even if they're outside Japan, I experienced this in Germany. Minolta was one of my customers, and it was a long time until I got my purchase order. So I can fully appreciate what you're actually saying. Now, as you heard, I come from Germany. I am very biased on the benefits of the United States and Silicon Valley in particular, because I had my exits, I ran the fund, I see things that I have never experienced in Europe growing up there. Now, what is the Asian perspective of Asia wanting to invest in Silicon Valley, if they want to invest at all?
Well, I do think that Asia used to be, the metaphorical Wild West, right? Like there's a lack of information about certain companies, deals. There's a lack of transparency in the accounting process of certain countries. That's the perception that persists even within Asia to some extent, right? The due diligence needs to be stronger in certain jurisdictions. So naturally, as wealth has developed, the deal flow tends to be very competitive, but everybody still wants a great deal and everybody still wants access. So I definitely see that family offices here are looking more and more institutionally to get access to the deals in the West. Everybody sees the innovation that's happening out of Silicon Valley. I mean, that's one thing that has persisted throughout time, throughout political regimes, throughout a fairly long period of a track record there. And people do want not just access, but the opportunity to actually see companies at a certain stage of their life cycle. And I think that's why this event is extremely attractive, because we're not talking about nascent companies. We're talking about companies that perhaps have a certain size and exposure already, but perhaps not quite yet unicorn stage. So that is definitely premium. And overlay that with what I mentioned earlier about the trust factors, right? Like I think the personal time, the one-on-ones, the opportunity to get the exposure and the introductions and the insights definitely helps.
So let us assume a venture fund in Silicon Valley would like to raise cross-border funding. What advice would you give them if they would go to Singapore and try to find LPs? You have a lot of HNIs, you have a lot of family funds down there. Is it out of the question for them to do a roadshow and get investment for a global play?
No, not at all. In fact, I see more and more of the capital in Singapore moving west. I think as a small aside, I think the availability of capital here is immense, right? Like we attracted so much capital here post-COVID because of the very fertile grounds here. And to some extent, that's slowing down somewhat because of the government's basically said, we have to put up some traffic lights. But fundamentally, I think they have to go beyond your traditional roadshow, right? Your traditional roadshow is something that I think has been going on for really well over 10 years now. And there are plenty of Silicon Valley companies that are trying to present themselves. I think the mistake that a lot of Western investors do is having that mindset that Asia is one locale and one mindset and one priority.
Yeah.
I still see that in many companies. My wife is in a media company and she expresses the same frustration. Every country has a different culture, prioritizes different things, and that customization of the pitch to the investor, I think, is vital.
You are so correct. I mean, I didn't know this until I researched this a few months back. Korea was at one point in time part of Japan, right? And Japan was part of China before they left actually mainland China. And they have basically almost nothing in common anymore, right? And there is a funny story that a Japanese told me there is one word that is identical in all three languages, but one means girlfriend, one means wife, and one means concubine.
Exactly.
Yeah.
These nuances exist all over Asia, and actually the sensitivities are very subtle, and you could accidentally say the wrong thing if you're not aware of it. So yeah, exactly.
And
what
I always say
your
I don't
examples
speak
make.
English, I speak American, because there is a huge difference between those two languages today as well in the marketplace. So what advice would you give US VC funds? How should they approach Grasshopper? What can you offer them to better their lives?
Well, first off, I'll just be straight up, right? Like there are not very many high frequency trading type of firms available for investment. So I think we are a unique animal. I think if you look across the landscape, there are only two listed and all the rest of the capital is private, because once you hit a certain scale, the returns are almost too lucrative to give up. Secondly, I think the access into Asia is very not homogeneous, is very individualized. And having a firm in Asia that knows how to do that actually is significantly beneficial, especially in this political climate that we're living in where, conflicts may arise at short notice and fundamentally, right, like having an Asian firm that has that access is actually very valuable. Thirdly, I mean, like we are a good gateway. The VCC structure as introduced by Qianming is extremely powerful because the Singapore government has a very effective way of saying like, hey, this country does it well. Let's find a structure that works and imitate it in Singapore. And in the aftermath of that, it's been extremely successful. We set up the asset management license. We applied for it in 2020. Nobody wanted the VCC at that point, right? 5 years later, everybody wants to be in a VCC structure because it's fairly affordable, transparent, clean. The advantages of Singapore have been elucidated many times, and it is very clearly the Switzerland of Asia. And in many ways, I think soon to be moving towards the world because we have this very unique positioning. So combine the advantages of Singapore, advantages of our structure and our track record, I think we can genuinely help, at the very least, point you in the right direction. And 𝐂𝐬𝐧 does a great job of setting people up. So that's all I got. That's all I have.
Do you also have in your portfolio government funds and government bonds and money market products as well?
We currently do not have a super broad range of products, but in our fixed income fund, we do have fixed income products that are government-based and high quality BBB plus credit products. So we do have that kind of exposure that we can offer people. Yeah, so I think we are fairly flexible. We have a new fund coming up in a few months that promises uncorrelated returns. I think that's our calling card. Our return structures tend to be almost inversely correlated to volatility. So we do generally better when the world is a little bit more volatile than usual, which I think people do kind of expect in the next couple of years.
Yeah, but if you really want volatile, go to crypto.
Oh, I'll say this first. Many of our compatriots did go into crypto. A lot of professional trading firms headed that way. And strangely enough, I think there's been, let's just say, because of crypto's slow institutionalization, there have been people that have been leaving crypto on and off. We haven't even talked about the benefits of Singapore post conflict in the Middle East, because I think there are a fair number of family offices and funds coming out of Dubai as well.
Yeah.
So there's definitely a vibe about Singapore and also Hong Kong as well. I think Hong Kong is coming back a little bit.
I'm leaving you with a little joke that I learned many, many years ago. Kosztolyany was a Hungarian mathematician, very well versed in stock markets, and he was asked on a party, how can I make a small fortune in the stock market? You know his answer?
No,
You have to
I'm
start
not
with
aware.
a big fortune.
Start with a big.
Thank you so
That's a
much.
good one.
It was a pleasure to have you. And now my next guest, Carol Pivarsi. Carol, come to the floor.
Hi, good morning from Asia's Shenzhen. Even though I'm based in Singapore, I'm currently traveling to China in Shenzhen, which is a kind of local Silicon Valley of this part of the world. And good evening to you in Americas.
You are also based over in Singapore. You also are in the investment field. So tell us a little bit more about your thesis and what you're doing and what products are you delivering.
Yes, even though I'm based here in this part of the world, as you can see and hear from me, I'm not originally from here, although being based in Singapore for more than 12 years. I started in what's called a fintech space, which back then when I started in 2004, there was no even word fintech at that point. I came to Asia, as I mentioned, in the years 2013, 2014, where I operated HealthTech markets for the DeepTech player. And since 2019, I set up what's called today in Euro-Asia Asset Management, which is Singaporean-based asset management, focusing on two mandates. That Euro-Asia is a little bit obvious from that name, where we bridge capital markets opportunities between these two regions, especially continental Europe and Southeast Asia, with outreach to Far East Asia as well. Where currently we do have 5 funds underneath, out of them one in private equity, which we closed and exited. We have 2 real estate funds. We have a hedge fund that is arbitraging precious metals between our regions. And we have, even though it is structured as a fund, it is a multi-family office account, which has a broad mandate to allocation. Everything.
We heard there is a lot of capital that flew over the last few years over the border into Singapore. You say you're doing real estate fund as well. The real estate must have gone through the roof in the last 5 years.
So to put it in a right merit, so real estate, 2 funds that we have, one is in infrastructure and one is what's called a retail parks, or part of the world that the Walmarts and Costco's, right? These funds assets are predominantly in Europe, and these funds here in Singapore act as a feeder structure, or feeder funds. To your question about real estate in Singapore, well, I must say that even though we are all very pro-market and pro-capitalist in many ways, Singapore actually shown to be probably the best regulated place in terms of living space, or basically residential markets, which is heavily regulated. And if you look at the charts in comparison, especially with Hong Kong, and Singapore, somewhere from the years 2015, 2016, the paths went different way, where Singapore chose to be very regulated and kind of even set off foreigner investors into real estate space. Just to let you know, the stamp duty to buy a Singaporean property, residential property for foreigner now is at 60%. So it's really telling you not to buy it here, not to buy it, and not to overheat the local market, as residential is seen to be as a part of, I would say, public service or public interest, where they don't want to run it as a hot potato and make it that's seen in another part of the world.
Now, your firm is clearly saying it's Euro-Asia capital.
Yes.
Where did what was the motivation, and is the US anywhere on the future roadmap?
Yes, so the motivation is pretty straightforward. The information, knowledge, culture, or even relationship differences between 2 regions are still very far apart. So that bridge and that basically connection is what we're trying to build here, with a little bit maybe of differentiation factors, such as if you look at the theory, if you are a CIO, theory you learn, you invest directly the markets where you are expert. Right? You really have to see. Fair enough, but markets that you don't know by heart, if you don't know your better to invest with local experts and better to invest with the best performing managers from this region. And as you can imagine, out of your perspective, if we would tell you, okay, invest in best VC funds or best VC projects in Southeast Asia, in Malaysia, Indonesia, you would be very part of that knowledge, right? So better for you to link with the local top performing managers. It goes exactly the same way the other way, right? For Singaporean investors now to be too clever and too smart to do direct investments in other parts of the world, including yours, is way, way bigger risk than to do it with rather with.
So on your, I think I read it on your website, you're speaking about re-domicile. Re-domicile, let's take the classic example. We have a US fund. What do you suggest they do re-domiciling their fund to Singapore? And what does it and how does it impact from your knowledge if they still want to have their investment targets in Silicon Valley? So basically just re-domiciling HQ, the headquarters, but the activities will not be re-domiciled. Is that the value proposition?
Yes, so maybe I start from the angle that I wanted to highlight. We often ask questions to all the participants: what is it how it is to make and raise business and money in this part of the world? And there is one word that hasn't been mentioned properly, and this is local relevance, right? Where you can see, this island of Singapore, 32 times 40 kilometers, where road shows and events such as yours is, you can say, easily 10 per week. To make yourself unique, to make yourself relevant, takes a bit more than to do participation or speaking at such events or such a conferences. Hence, that relevance with the local flair is very important. That you need to do the things according to local rules and regulations and governance. That's A. B, that you plan it for long term, and fact that you have your skin in the game in this part of the world, with your own name being as a director or as basically having established that the vehicle here is underlined, that basically longevity of your intention doing business here, and then whatever projects or whatever allocation, whatever investment ideas you present, that they are relevant locally, or at least for distribution, is for nothing else, because ideally, of course, it is beyond, but at least for distribution in this part of the world is, I would say, a must-have if you are not a well-known brand. Obviously, if you are from applied materials, it is a different world, and you are setting up your own VCC fund or your own company seeking funds. So underlying it, that local relevance is the key word here. And to your questions, what does it mean to re-domicile? By all means, nobody expects to move a headquarter or basically your entire operations here, because then the flair of, from your case, from Silicon Valley would be gone. But that, if I may say, in the fund's perspective, that feeder structure here, or any SPV that is sister company, daughter company, or basically your Asian setup in this part of the world, that must have as a proof that you really need it for longer term. This is not just one-off that's happening over 1 or 2 years.
Are all very great insights, and looking forward to hearing more from you in the future. And people that are interested will be able to reach out to you and learn more. To introduce the founder of Pitch Global, my friend and partner, Kaustaf Chowdhury, also short Casey for everybody. And Casey, it's my great pleasure to hand over the floor to you. You will introduce one interview that leads then into a pitch and a few other pitches as well, where we demonstrate how cross-border funding has already taken root and what great companies we are connected to. Thank you so much. Casey, the floor is yours.
Great. Thank you, Axel. So now we come to what we are really passionate about, which is the entrepreneurial spirit. Our company has been an affiliate of funding and mentoring agencies of California government for almost 10 years. And now we are getting into higher tier of mentoring where we are working to attract cross-border investments into San Francisco. So today's event is showcasing Singapore. We have started with Singapore and created this program, Silicon Valley Access. But we looked at previous programs and we thought in order program to be really successful, we need to create local presence. That's why with some ultimate local insiders like our mentor Sharon Sin, we have started Silicon Valley Access. And today we are gonna showcase four companies. The first company is based in Singapore. The other three companies are in California, Silicon Valley, and we are mentoring them. They are they all four companies are not normal companies because they are connected to incredible ecosystems. The first company from Singapore, founders are globally known thought leaders for Prester and Partners and leading family office groups. The second company, Rijol, we are uh, our friends, CEO of LG Ventures, they invested in them in the early stage and they are refurbishing batteries and they are changing the world. And third company, Shinstar, Korean company, which has raised funds and moved to San Francisco, really exemplifying what cross-border trade and attracting investments to San Francisco is all about. And fourth company, last but not the least, in nuclear tech, they have they have recently got 35 million from Tim Mellon and who has taken seat on the board. And if any of the family offices here, fund of funds, they invest. This is a this is an opportunity to get seat on the board with Tim Mellon, ultimate insider in US heritage and society. So on the note, I'm gonna introduce the first chat. This person, the company is Ocean.ai, and Vishal Kevalromani will also be hosted in a chat by Anthony Boraguno. Anthony Boraguno was in Singapore for Grant Thornton, where he had a Pan-Asian role, and now he relocated to Chicago. So Anthony is going to interview Vishal for getting his insights on family offices in Asia, after which they are going to talk about Vishal's companies. I know one company is Ocean AI, but someone like Vishal has multiple companies. So they have their 14 minutes and they can, whatever they say will enlighten all of us. So on that note, Anthony, floor is yours, brother.
Thank you, Casey. Thank you for everyone for having us today. So my name is Anthony Bonagro. I'm a partner at Grant Thornton. I specialize in advisory services for companies that are looking to go public or looking to raise. Living in Singapore, covered all of Asia Pacific, traveled extensively throughout Asia to where there were days where I would start in Singapore, have lunch in Hong Kong and dinner in Korea. So got to see all the big cities, I would say, within Asia for the most part, and loved my time there. And then, Vishal, would you like to introduce yourself?
I do not see Vishal in the queue, so I am just trying to.
Anthony, you can finish your part and give a pitch for OceanAI as well. You have interviewed him so many times, so you can tell him we love to improvise because a change happens every moment in Silicon Valley, and we can curate the change. So don't worry. I know it's not easy to log in from Singapore in the morning.
Understood. No, I would be happy to. And so Vishal's he runs a family office, has been very successful in a number of different companies over the years. He's taken companies public in the past, and with the current company here, Ocean AI. Ocean AI is based in Singapore. Vishal is looking at going public with this company, raising an IPO at some point in time here in the near term. The company, what it does is it facilitates other companies that are looking that produce product and looking to ship it to places like the US, but they're looking to actually they have to go the cross-border route, and so that there's the tariffs and the other aspects of it. But what Vishal does is he allows them to get the currency. They're not the bank, but what they do is they actually provide we'll call it insurance/funding through a third party that allows them to then ship their product to their customer here in the US. And the customer takes the product in the US, for example, within hours. So it's not something that's really carrying the risk on Vishal's books, on Ocean AI's books. It's something that is basically mitigated. The company is growing very rapidly. And it's mostly in the North America, UK, and in Australia at the current point in time is where most of the operations are. I would I don't want to necessarily go into too much detail because I don't know what Vishal's current pitch is for the company, but I would say that the other aspect of this here is that Vishal has a lot of interest in this company, given that the growth that it's having, and he's lined up to potentially do a deal here. We're looking at probably third, fourth quarter of this year, is what it looks like. Casey, that's what I would probably be willing to share without knowing where Vishal is currently in his process.
Okay. So, Anthony, why don't you also tell us about the kind of companies you have helped on behalf of Grant Thornton and what kind of progress they have made and any famous exits. So let's hear about your role in Grant Thornton.
Absolutely. No, my pleasure, Casey. So my role in Grant Thornton over the years, when I was in Asia, I was very much facilitating cross-border work. And a lot of the companies that I was working with were US companies or companies in Asia that were looking to obtain investment either from the US or North America. And some of the conversations earlier today, like our first conversation, it is so true. Like the number of family offices in Singapore is growing exponentially. And the amount of investment that's available out of Singapore, Hong Kong, which are the two largest places for family offices in Asia. We facilitated quite a few transactions with those companies looking to raise funds in the US through either an IPO or through an exit or through other investment through either private equity or private credit or family office funds. There's been a number of companies that we've worked with in the past in Asia. And many of those companies, I would say that when I look back and think about it, many of them are coming through Singapore ultimately and then coming back up through the US. And a lot of that is because when you look at the Singapore market in relation to business, it's very friendly. It's a low tax haven, as we've talked about here, but it's also a place where it's very organized and very structured. So when you look at investments from the US investors are usually very amicable to making investments in those companies. And it's somewhat common. Like you see like when one of the earlier conversations where I do believe a lot of the family offices that are based there, they have done many multinational investments in the past. So it's not a abnormal thing for them to do. I would also say that one of the reasons why Singapore has always been one of those jurisdictions that companies usually have an easier time raising funds is because the records that are there in the accounting and books that are being kept are typically very well kept and in an orderly fashion, meaning that we're not in a place where you're going to have many restatements or there's going to be a lot of revisions to what you're seeing. It's usually a pretty good set of organized books. And I can think of times where there were companies out of Vietnam or companies out of Indonesia that were headquartered in those places, but they would have their holding company in Singapore, and then they would list out of Singapore, list in the US, but with their corporation or their headquarters at the point in time before they raised the funds in Singapore. So Casey, that's some like very high level and some thoughts, but we very much and happy to talk to anyone on this call at any point in time and give you more thoughts and to really get into some more detail of what we're seeing day to day. But I will tell you, it's a very healthy market right now in the sense of companies that are both coming out of Asia and the amount of interest in the US in Asian companies.
That's great. Anthony, I particularly liked how you ended it talking about record keeping and everything, because company which did our paperwork, Qualys, who presented on tax, Sharon is very intimately connected with them. It's connected to her family. So I'll make sure you and Sharon have a conversation and maybe Qualys as well, because there could be synergy, especially during Singapore Super Return Week where Sharon would be there, Axel would be there. We'll have back-to-back events, and we'd love you to be there as well. We'll be honored to have you. So on that note, thank you, and please see the next three presentations. Next company, very, very battle-hardened company. We have been working with them for 1.5 years. They are based in California, refurbishing battery, brother and sister team. They also came to our to U.S. House of Congress event we co-hosted on behalf of Foundation, where I'm secretary and board member. I'm always in awe of this company, and especially when LG Tech Ventures invested in them in the early stage. So today I am going to introduce you to one of their investors who is going to talk about his investment thesis and then introduce this amazing entrepreneur. So the person is Jia Hong Shaw. He's from Elevate 8 VC and he's based in Singapore and he has invested in California company. So it is perfect example of the kind of cross-border uh, trade and investment we are showcasing and attracting on behalf of California government. So, Jia Hong, the floor is yours, brother.
Great. Thank you so much, Casey, and thank you for having me. Quick introduction, and first off, I want to say probably a big change in tone coming through to me. I'm quite a straight talker. Hope nobody minds. I'm Jia Hong. I'm the founder of Turn Off, Turn On Ventures, which is an early stage climate tech personal portfolio. And then currently running the Ignite investments, which is again super early stage investments at Elevate VC, which is a Singapore-based deep tech only venture capital fund. I know today we're talking a lot about family offices, high net worth, and how the bridges can be built between different regions of the world. And I'm going to share something a bit different, perhaps, that goes beyond my investment thesis. Hopefully, something that is relevant and opens up different perspectives from people in the audience. And I'm very happy to take on questions directly if anyone wants to chip in. So, funnily enough, one of the earliest speakers, Priya, we started our careers together. She was 1 year above me in Blackrock. I spent my early years of my career in Blackrock, figuring out the far end of the investment spectrum, as I call it, right? The big boys, the big funds, the big ETFs, the big players in alternatives, and then slowly I moved across the line towards VC, private capital, and eventually building out my own portfolio of startups. And here's two things that I hope can add a bit more color into what happens at that early stage. There's a lot of conversation about, right at the start, they say, what are investors looking at or family FOs looking at? Access, and people tend to think about it from the perspective of deals. How do I get direct access to deals, direct deal access? A big part of it is changing the framework from direct deal access to direct founder access, direct human access. And sometimes that takes work. You might know or find some networker, someone who's on the ground who knows what the deals are. But in the end, when you put the money down, it's about putting money down in the person, the people leading the company, right? This was my approach when I started building out the angel portfolio. And that was when I reached out to Stephen and Zora Chung at Rejo. I believe we connected because I just saw a video on YouTube.
Wow.
I just read about them at some competition and I said, if the future is electrification and there is undoubtedly going to be many batteries around, we need a way to make sure that they stay safe, they stay of service across their 10 and now sometimes even 20, 25-year lifespans. These are expensive things. These are important things. They provide a service to society. Who out there can create that safety layer, that reliability layer? And 𝐂𝐿𝐥𝐢 was my bet a couple of years ago. I'm not going to take more time. Anyone can reach out to me directly on my LinkedIn. I pasted it in the chat, but I want to give the time to Stephen. Stephen, you have the floor.
All right, thanks so much, Xiaohong. Yeah, really good introduction, and thank you to Casey, Sharon, and Axel for having me. So yeah, I'm Stephen from 𝐂𝐿𝐥𝐢. We want to maximize the value, the safety, and the circularity of EV batteries. This photo here was taken, actually, I'm not sharing my screen. Let me do that right now. Okay, now you should see it. So this photo that you all now see was taken at an automaker site just last year. This product in the middle here, this black box, this is our product. We're plugging into a vehicle, as well as on the right here, this is an electric vehicle battery that's been removed and extracted from the vehicle. So before I get into that, just a little bit more about the team. I've been in the battery and power space for the past 13 years or so. I sit on multiple technical boards like UL, SAE, IEC, and then I also have some experience in the defense industry, building power systems for Navy ships and submarines. My co-founder, Zora, she has a finance background, and she was doing corporate finance for some really big Fortune 500 companies. The team also kind of rounding us out. We have a lot of experience directly in electric vehicles and stationary storage. Dave has experience with Twice and Renewance, and then Z, he's our engineering team lead, really one of the premier experts in electrochemical impedance spectroscopy, which is the technology that our product is based off. As Casey mentioned before, LG Technology Ventures is one of our backers, so we're very happy and proud to have them in our cap table. Some others notable is Char Group based in Australia, the Department of Energy, the California Energy Commission, as well as the National Science Foundation. We've actually raised quite a bit of non-dilutive funding over the past several years, and that has allowed us to really invest in, build up the core technology that's allowed us to get to the point of commercializing this technology for two very, very big industries. So now I'll get into the problem. The key problem we're solving is that there's some poor quality battery health data that's leading to a lot of waste in these fast growing industries. In North America here, even though EV sales have slowed the past year, it's still up 20% globally. There's a record number of electric vehicles on the roads, but there's a huge problem. As Xiaohong mentioned, a lot of these EVs, when they reach end of life, and I'll put air quotes here, 92% of these batteries still have some useful life left in them. And this 92% number, this is a figure that we've actually tested. We tested hundreds, maybe even thousands of EV batteries at this point, and found that many of them still have useful life. And that's a lot of waste in an industry that traditionally has quite low margins. And then I want to talk about this other industry, the battery energy storage system industry, BESS. It's experiencing massive growth, and large BESS are a major part of the AI energy infrastructure build out that's happening right now. Yet almost 1/5 of the battery systems that have been deployed have some sort of performance related battery health issue. And this ultimately reduces reliability of these energy storage assets, and also reduces the amount of revenue that these assets may be able to generate. So for both of these industries, the ability to understand how healthy is that battery, that's really the core problem that we're tackling. And we're doing that with a technology that allows rapid field deployable testing. So we have a hardware software-based technology, which I won't go too much into at this point, but we're applying that to these massive industries in electric vehicles, in circularity for electric vehicles, as well as for battery energy storage. So for EVs, we can help keep batteries on the roads longer, while also improving their product reliability. In terms of EV circularity, we can help reduce the cost to test and repair these batteries before ultimately they need to go be recycled. And then for these battery energy storage systems, we can help improve the performance and increase revenues of these very large, very expensive energy assets. So we built some cutting edge technology in terms of both the hardware and some of the data that we're collecting. So we have granted patents in high voltage electrochemical impedance spectroscopy, or EIS, and some signal processing technology. You can think of EIS as just a quick test. We inject sine waves into a battery, measure a response. Typically, this only happens at the cell level, and some of our secret sauce is being able to do this on high voltage EV battery packs and stationary storage batteries. With the data that we're collecting, we're able to build some advanced AI battery models using a unique and proprietary data set on battery degradation on these batteries that are aged in the field. And then finally, we're able to collect data not only on the batteries themselves, but also on operational things like repairs and life cycle operations. And how much money does it cost to fix one of these batteries if there is an issue? So all these become a big part of our technology moat, whether it's core IP or a part of the data moat that we're building. So I think we all agree these are massive industries. I'll kind of skip through this slide, but EV testing, we see $8 billion globally in 2030, and for stationary storage, we see at least 400 million for testing. So our revenue kind of grows with the number of batteries that we're testing and with our customers. So we monetize by selling equipment to dealerships as well as to utilities and IPPs. And there's also a software subscription/service component to what we're building. So here are some components of the business model, and between the energy storage and the electric vehicle market, by 2030, we do anticipate 35 million in revenue. That's split between the electric vehicle and the stationary storage market. So we have some traction as well. As I may have mentioned before, we're working with some leading North American and European automakers already at their remanufacturing depots. And we are working with we have a contract signed with a major European automaker, and we expect to have some dealership trials of our battery testing product in summer of 2026. I think the last they said was June, so we might be into July if things delay a little bit, but pretty soon. And we're also negotiating contracts with utilities and IPPs, independent power producers, at the moment for the battery energy storage state of health analysis product. So for all of these kind of use cases, it's really the same technology, same product that we've already built up, already tested with global automakers on 3 continents in North America, Europe, and Asia. And we're really applying this now for these massive industries. So we are seeking a $1.5 million investment to expand really into the battery energy storage market in North America. For the past several years, we've really been deep into the automotive industry, and we have some great traction there. We have a really strong foothold. But as I mentioned, especially in North America right now, the North American automotive industry is a bit stagnant, but we're seeing a lot of growth in the stationary storage market. So we want to use some of this funding to really accelerate our growth in this industry. We've been trying to get customers over just the past several months, and we're already close to signing with a big IPP. So with this money, we'd be able to get 10 battery energy storage system customers and really establish the product market fit in this growing BESS service industry, with a key milestone of being able to sign multi-year service contracts with some of these IPPs to help manage and improve the performance of their systems.
Great. Stephen, we have run out of time. Do you
Okay.
want to wrap up in like 40 seconds?
Okay, thank you. Yes, I will wrap up very soon. Just very quickly, why now? Why Redual? The EV volume still increasing. Regulation for EVs and stationary storage is imminent. Best players are really building out for the AI data infrastructure, which is getting a lot of investment at the moment. And we're a proven team. We've worked with leading automotive and battery companies, and we're backed by some pretty big names. So with that, thank you so much, and happy to take any questions.
Great. So, Stephen, now that SBIR, SBTR has been opened up, so I think the fortunes will really get to the next level for you. We have event in San Diego where on 6/22, even it's a bio event, but there'll be people from NIH talking about SBTR, SBIR. So you can come there, I'll introduce you to them, and maybe they'll give you referrals to people who lose enough money for climate as well. So I'll be in touch on that.
Great, thank you.
Welcome. All right, the next company, the person who's gonna introduce this amazing founder who from food tech and is from Korea, and he raised over $10 million and moved to United States. And one of his investor is Mi Jin from Kit VC, and she is going to talk briefly about her investment thesis and then introduce Jay Shin from Shinstar.
Amazing. Well, good evening, good morning, everyone, and thank you for the Pitch Global team for having us. I'm Mi-jin Han, and I'm a principal at Korea Investment Partners US, where I focus on early stage tech deals in the US, and particularly across areas such as robotics, AI, healthcare, and more. Korea Investment Partners, or KIP, was founded in 1986 and is one of the longest standing venture capital firms in South Korea, with about $4 billion USD asset under management today. In addition to our US presence in Silicon Valley, the firm also has its HQ in South Korea, 3 offices in China, and also in Singapore as well. Which gives us a pretty broad perspective on how innovation, capital, and tech all evolve globally. One of the areas I've personally become increasingly interested in is how robotics and intelligence automation move beyond industrial environments and begin transforming real-world service operations. And food service is one of the clearest examples of that shift. So globally, restaurants are dealing with persistent labor shortages, rising operating costs, and increasing pressure around speed, consistency, and throughput, while ordering, payments, and delivery logistics, so mostly front of the house, have become increasingly digitized, and the kitchen itself has remained one of the hardest operational environments to automate at scale. And that's what initially drew us to Shinstar. What stood out to us was the fact that the company was not simply building a robotic gadget or novelty food concept, but the fact that they're building a vertically integrated automation platform that combines robotics, software, kitchen operations, and customer experience into a commercially deployable system. The company first gained attention through autonomous Korean food trucks in the Bay Area, where meals are cooked inside robotic kitchens while the vehicle is en route to the customer. And since then, the company has also expanded into fixed retail formats through Alsa House as they continue exploring how robotic kitchen infrastructure can scale across different food service environments. But ultimately, what we found especially compelling is the broader platform vision behind it. The tech is modular and designed to extend beyond food trucks into airports, hospitality environments, campuses, and other high throughput food service settings where labor efficiency and operational consistency matter tremendously. And as an investor, one thing we pay close attention to is whether a robotics company can move beyond prototype stage tech into actual operational deployment. Shinstar has shown a strong ability to bridge hardware, software, and real-world execution, which is honestly, from a VC perspective, much harder than it sounds. And we believe that the company represents an interesting example of innovation emerging from the intersection of, Korean operational know-how and Silicon Valley's robotics and AI ecosystem. So we're very excited about what the team is building and where the company is headed next. So with that, yeah, it's my pleasure to introduce Jason, CEO and co-founder of Shinstar, who will walk you through the company and vision in more detail.
Hello, guys. Can you guys hear me? Am I well connected? Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Hi. Let me actually share the screen first so I can talk about what we do. We do some crazy stuff, but let me explain. Okay. Well, where Shinstar presents we're trying to be the global #1 for AI food robotics in food area. So that is we're under a mission to enhance human dining experience. And thank you for the opportunity. I'm Jay Shin. I'm CSO and co-founder of Shinstar Presents. Before my journey with Shinstar to build the future of dining, I was actually a public global tech investor for 13 years, including Welcome Singapore. It's my second home. I spent 6 years over there, working 3 years for Fullerton Asset Management, which is a company of Temasek. And also I spent another 3 years as a Morgan Stanley Investment Management Asia headquartered in Singapore. So let's talk about what we're building as a Korean startup, and we're selling Korean culture through our robotics. So this is the Korean cultural renaissance a little bit before we explain why Korean barbecue is the fastest growing cuisine in America, if not the world right now. There's lots of people already know that the Korean culture business has been exploding in global markets very recently. It's only been 10 years, but they don't really clearly understand what macro has been driving this mega trend. So one thing you should notice here is that Korea has one of the longest cultural roots that goes beyond 5,000 years. And during the period, our ancestors and generation, we've been converging and diffusing our cultures with innovation and adoption. So in return, if you look at Korea from 1997 to 2000, and a lot of economists has been digging into this, studying for this, because Korea has shown the fastest growth on earth ever created by human history by growing our exports from $1 billion to $170 billion in just 30 years, right? So that's it. So, we call this a Made in Korea era that built the country branding, which led to massive global attention. And that's why you're seeing on the middle section, you see 90% of the Korean visits has happened since 2000. And because of this massive tourism explosion coming inbound to Korea, this finally took off the Korean cultural wave, or so to be called Hallyu. And this era has only been 10 years since 2015. Now we're heading into 2026. So what's going to happen? We believe Korean cultural business will only get bigger in scale in steadier manner than any other industry in Korea, as now the cultural industry is not just dealing with 55 million domestic customers in Korea, but instead we're dealing with over 500 accumulated global customers as the tourists who visited Korea over the last 25 years. They're now becoming the main consumption power with the generational mix change in global markets. So that's why you're seeing the Korean barbecue becoming the fastest growing cuisine in America right now, with the 15%, 5% CAGR growth. As more younger generation in America, they prefer consuming beef in Korean barbecue restaurants instead of the boring and formal steakhouses. Simple as that. And with this trend continuing, we believe Korean barbecue market alone in the US will get closer to 70% of the steakhouse market in the US. And we sell really well, the Korean barbecue. Really, really well. So as soon as we debut our global franchise brand, also Korean barbecue, in Silicon Valley last year, we became the hottest restaurant brand in Silicon Valley right now. In our first year of debut, we were able to grow our revenue by more than 5,000%. And our also brand is still growing as of now in the Silicon Valley. So first, Urso House is our full service restaurant franchise model within our Urso brand. And our first location in San Mateo debuted in May last year. And our operation performance with over $400,000 on monthly revenue with over 20% EBITDA is currently already a top 0.1 percentile in the whole US F&B industry when it comes to operation performance. And we're opening our second location in Silicon Valley, one more in 4Q this year to prove multiple location with even higher performance and profitability. So our plan for Orso House is pretty simple. We would like to build 2 more direct location in San Francisco and in LA by next year. And we have already targeted the spots that we exactly want to open that are currently a Korean barbecue infrastructure. And with having these 2 addition to our existing 2, which makes all 4 direct location, we'll already be #1 Korean barbecue brand in California with structural positive cash flow as a firm. And we can start the master franchising to scale up to national top 30 cities after that. So no more direct expansion is needed for us after this. So even if we're currently having just 1 location in operation as a proven unit economics model, I mean, would tell everything about national scale potential for sure. So our brand is already the most effective operation, and our brand is the only Korean barbecue brand in the US that currently does not rely on specific ethnicity in operational model, which most of, as you know, the authentic Japanese restaurant, Chinese restaurant, Korean restaurants that do perform top tier in the US market, they're specifically heavily relying on those specific labors. And which is a critical layer if you think about it when it comes to US top 50 states national franchising. And most importantly, you need to know that you need to at least have closer to 20% EBITDA margin on your direct stores if you really want this to be successfully scaled out and quickly franchise out to the master franchise partners. And this comes our next big thing. As a food robotics company before F&B restaurant business, we have been pilot operating our fully robotic kitchen on top of the food truck to showcase our robotic kitchen technology and the fresh Korean food that is made out of it. So we've been serving more than 10,000 bowls in Silicon Valley, and we're still maintaining over 4.8 consumer rating on both Google and Yelp. And meaning that Silicon Valley people loves it. So due to this validation of our technology and food, we have been getting love calls from US international airports on our typical application. And finally, we're proud to announce that we're bringing our fully autonomous QSR system into LA International Airport by end of this year that can run 24/7 without the staff at night shift, enhancing the LAX overall airport experience for travel customers. And this is specifically the model that is currently in the Pacific Ocean that we're shipping into the LA. LAX wants this product to be installed into their international terminal. This is a 10-year contract with LA government, and this is the first time in Korean F&B history entering the top tier airports in USA. And with this just a small footprint, we can generate up to 35% margin with our system. And we don't sell we only sell fresh ingredients. There's nothing that in our kitchen that is pre-cooked or that is getting reheated to serve to the customer. Everything is fresh ingredients. And just by doing this into our operation, and we can because we're a robotic kitchen, we aim for 0 food waste whatsoever because anything is pre-cooked or reheated food by US regulation as a safety food code, you need to trash those out in 4 hours, whereas all our fresh ingredient, it stays in the kitchen for 48 hours. So we can churn our inventory within 2 days. So that's the big difference. So while the QSR is still fastest growing restaurant model in the US, the margin has been collapsing 25 years consecutively and will enter into 0% very soon. As you can see on the right example in LAX, which we're entering very soon, they already decided to increase the minimum wage from current $22 per hour all the way up to $30 an hour by 2028. So we only have 3 years left for this, right? And if you look at the current California airport restaurants, because of their spending too much cost equation into their cost structure, they're spending over 40% on their labor. That's why their revenue is guaranteed because you're selling your products into one of the busiest airport in the world. But due to your cost structure, you're only getting less than 2% as a EBITDA margin, which that's why it's harder and harder for food operator to take any profits out of the table after all that 30 days hard working into the place. So whereas if you see our model on the right side, this is our franchisee model. So once our partner takes this machine and install as a franchisee, even after they pay us the royalty of 10%, they still can aim closer to 20% EBITDA as a franchisee. And that starts to make sense for franchisor as us and also the franchisee. It's a circular system that we're trying to create.
Jay, we are running out of time, so can you
Oh,
take
sure.
50
I'm almost
seconds
done. Yep, sorry.
to
And
talk about the finance, how much you're
yeah,
raising?
sure. So we'll master franchise this QSR system to all 50 states. And we already have a few big national franchise partner who wants to franchise this. And as a result, we believe our capability to have both brand royalty and tech innovation into the extremely higher valuable company. And as a number one food robotics company that has already built strong brand presence in the USA, we have committed world-class shareholders, including KIP. Thanks for coming and joining this call, who's the largest VC in Korea. And I believe we have the best USA team that is formed with all expertise in the US market and consumer experiences. In a nutshell, we're not looking for imminent money right now, but we will be opening our next round very soon. So I would like to spend this a little bit time. We're looking for investors for our upcoming 15 million growth Series A round. Or a $150 million sponsor, so I can fast track everything and build a US national coverage in 3 years' time via two-way M&A with the current NASDAQ listed company. So if you guys are interested in either way for discussion, please contact me at j@shinstart.com. Thank you very much.
Wow, very impressive. And there is more than one company in here for sure.
Yep.
So those are separate conversations. But I learned a lot. Jay, thank you for being here, and stop sharing screen. So now we are going to introduce the last company. It is newest member of our California government funded mentoring. This company is in nuclear tech, and recently iconic Tim Mellon has invested 35 million and taken board seat. So for Asian money wanting to come into and get a seat on the board with Tim Mellon, this kind of investment comes very rare. So it's my pleasure and privilege to introduce one of their angel investors, Super Connector from Singapore, who helped them get very smart money from other people. David Chia, who is going to introduce himself and then introduce the other David Fershin, who's the CFO, co-founder of this company. So David Chia, much appreciate your presence in our life. Floor is yours. And feel free to loop in any other investor you have here of this company from Singapore who wants to make comments as well.
Hi, everybody. I'm David from Singapore. Back about 15 years ago, I'm very focused in connecting deep tech from US to Asia money. And at that point, somewhere around 2010, my main focus is actually the solar energy as well as biofuel and exotic new generation nuclear energy. So back in 1989, I was very, very excited when I first read about news from Stanley Pond and Martin Fleischmann that developed initially a low energy nuclear reaction. The name for it is cold fusion. And unfortunately, nothing happened for the next 20 years. I was pretty disappointed, but I kept following the news on this particular very exotic science. And somewhere around 2009, I read from the US Navy that this technology is actually real. It is not some pseudoscience. And unfortunately, most companies could not tame the reaction. They could not control the reaction. And after some digging, I happened to chance upon Brilliant Energy. I developed a relationship with them. I like their technology a lot because they're the only company that can trigger a low energy nuclear reaction with a flip of a switch You can on it, you can off it, you can control and tame the beast. The keyword is to tame the beast. And I get connected to them. We work over the past more than 10 years, looking for investors as well as connecting to strategic partners. And over the year, we developed deeper relationship. And finally, I become the VP of Business Development for Asia. I managed to get some very interesting investor for this company. And they are actually, like, for example, the ex-CTO of Sembcorp, as well as the ex-COO of Singapore Technology. So at that point of time, Brilliant is still early stage. So it's more difficult to get money from VC and so forth. But those people that technically know that this is the future do invest in it. And I believe this is the only technology for fusion technology that is applicable in near term, because hot fusion is probably another 20 years away to be economically viable, may it be in US, China, or Europe. But low energy nuclear reaction, if done properly, we are probably only about 2 to 4 years away from initial commercialization. And this will really usher the fifth industrial revolution after the AI revolution. As we know, AI need a lot of electricity, and there's no good way to rapidly increase the electrical output in US and Europe. If we rely on existing fossil fuel, it will pollute the earth. If we rely on traditional nuclear energy, there will be a lot of environmental and safety concern. So fusion energy is the only way to go. But unfortunately, hot fusion is, from an engineering point of view, too difficult to render financially viable over the next 10 to 20 years. So I think that Brilliant is going to be a black horse that is going to change the world in a much bigger way than most people have realized. Thanks. I will let David Verschain take over. Yeah. Hi, David.
Hi.
Yep.
Thank you, David. Thanks
Yep.
for the great intro. Thank you.
Thanks.
Casey, I'll do my best to keep it short. Yeah, I am actually a co-founder and the chief financial officer, and basically have been helping to bootstrap the company from the beginning. We had a long incubation period, did a lot of things backwards, but we've actually grown quite a bit in the last 3-4 years. I'm gonna go ahead and share screen and go through some key slides in our deck, which will start here. And this is, let's see if I can get this to work. Our vision is to power the world with ultra clean, affordable, safe, abundant energy. We make a device called the hydrogen hot tube, and it has an electronic pulse system called the 𝐾-Pulse, which makes LENR-based heat. LENR is the scientific term for cold fusion. Actually, we believe that it's not cold fusion. We have a very specific type of physics model that generates low energy nuclear reaction heat. And our goal is to deliver scalable LENR systems and achieve commercial revenue. We actually believe we're very close to that, closer than actually David said, but he is not always as up to date as me. So obviously, we all know about the global energy challenge. This should be really obvious right here. But in our particular case, what we feel is important is that this particular type of energy has a lot of advantages, including the fact that there's no waste, zero, no radiation, no emissions. And in our system, it's actually a solid state device. So we have built a company that is finally becoming truly venture investable. And that's a graphic of it. In a moment, you'll see the actual device. This is the point. It's a nickel-based system. We use ordinary hydrogen gas, not deuterium. The amount of hydrogen that we use is extremely small. It's microscopic. And it's not burned in a chemical reaction. It's actually reacted at the atomic level. A controlled electron capture reaction drives it to make the heat that we want. It's safe, it's scalable, it's resilient, it's low cost, it's decentralized, and it's for industrial and residential applications. The metal tubes that we make are preloaded with hydrogen. They're driven by electronic pulses. The thermal output is driven by neutron formation via electron capture and followed by neutron absorption and decay. Our operating temperatures go up to 700 degrees C. Typically, we're between 500 and 700. It's got a very high energy density, and it's repeatable. It's protected by patents, trade secrets, and very advanced proprietary control software. It took us a long time to figure out how to explain this, but this is really what it's based on. It's not some made-up physics. It's actually, these are three well-known nuclear phenomena, and our key invention is the first one, neutron formation through electron capture. The neutron capture is a common nuclear reaction, and I'm not going to get into the physics or beyond this, but just to show people that we have actually really sussed it out, and we actually know how this works, and we can explain it to any PhD, and we have been. So that's one of the reasons that we're growing. What we still need to prove in a repeatable manufacturing process is the system level heat. We've made it in the lab, and really quickly, I'll just flip over to this slide over here. This was an original actual device. There's the actual hydrogen hot tube on the bottom right corner. You see, it's a metal tube. It's 2 feet long. And if you see the little rod sticking up at the top and down at the bottom, that's the catalyst rod. And technically, it's a tube itself. It's got a tiny hole in the middle. It's made out of primarily nickel and alumina and some copper. So no precious metals. That circuit board complex on top of the coffee cup, it's on top of the cup simply for scale, so you see it. So going back to this, we have made that in the lab, and now we've advanced it. It now looks more like this. This is actually a cutaway picture of it. You see the tube in the middle, or the catalyst tube right here in the middle, and the outside part of it is actually a water jacket for test purposes. That's actually not part of the product. But here you see that tube not cut away, it's closed. And finally, another good picture of it. So that's kind of where it's evolved to. We are now making in our lab, see if I can get this to, oh. We are now making in our lab lots and lots of those tubes that go in the middle. That catalyst tube is actually a key part of the driver that generates the heat. So we've reached this point in terms of where we are, and we're scaling to an alpha stage right now. And actually beta follows right on behind it. We've had independent expert validations to date at SRI. This guy used to be the head of the GE Hitachi nuclear energy program. Here's Los Alamos National Labs, PhD physicists. All of these people are PhD experts who tested our stuff independently. The whole point of this is to make a coefficient of performance where more electricity goes into that catalyst tube. Electricity goes into that catalyst tube, more heat comes out than electricity in. How is that possible? There's a transformation of the hydrogen into helium, and in the process, it releases a lot of heat. That's a small part of our lab. These are all test systems, just to give you an idea of what's going on and a sense of our timeline. I'm keeping track of the time, KC, and I'm going to skip over a lot of stuff here. So let me just jump out to here. It's a huge TAM, but in the conversation I had with Alex Tillman earlier today, he pointed out, look, where are you going to market? Well, honestly, the thing that this really makes the best is steam. High quality, low cost, powerful steam. And it can be applied to any industrial boiler or electrical generation facility. We actually are targeting in the beginning, going after small, medium, and large size power plants, independent power plants, whether they're small scale and they've failed. Maybe they were a wood chip plant or a biomass plant. There are actually several hundred here in the West that are frankly available for free that we could pick up. They failed to meet spec. They went offline, but all the cogens there, all the boilers that are there, we can repower them. We can pick them up. And the only thing we have to do is change out the heat source. So we're actually going to aim very hard at some depreciated coal plants and repower them as a first place to go to market. This is the current commercialization pathway. And let me just jump to, we've raised 64 million to date. As Casey mentioned earlier, we attracted billionaire Timothy Mellon of the Mellon banking family. He really liked what we were doing. And we are now in the middle of a $50 million Series D round. And we've raised 30 of it. We've raised a little over 30, but 30 of it came from Tim Mellon. We're now raising the final 20. And so that's what we're looking for. And we are in a lot of discussions with a lot of, wide variety of people that would fit. And so the opportunity is to participate and work with us on the commercialization. The use of proceeds will go into the cycles of learning to continue to scale those devices and then continue to secure commercial partners that we've actually begun advanced discussions with. We have built a pilot plant where we're making all of this in Emeryville, California. It's over 37,000 square feet. We've got a team. We're doing a lot of testing and iteration to scale it up. And in 6 minutes or less, that's about the fastest I can say it. Casey, you want me to take
Yeah.
questions?
No, David, it's perfect. We have reached the end, but I'm just going to make a couple of very quick comments. One is I love the SRI angle because one company, SRI Ventures, sent us Symphony, which started as a $40 million DARPA funding when they were a project in SRI. They spun this company out and they presented with us a couple of times and got one co-lead investor. So I can definitely send your stuff to SRI Ventures. And that's one. And I love that you're refurbishing the boilers and already investments which are waste outside and you're converting them into value like Rejoel is doing in battery. So I love that it's a added trend. It's a meta sustainable approach. Quick comment, then we end it.
I should add, we've actually generated close to 5 million in revenue, including 1.5 million of actual early commercial. Some of our earliest revenue came from a Korean construction and property developer in Seoul that wanted to get in very early with us and wants to bring it to Korea. We also have an Australia, New Zealand licensees aiming to do the same. So just mention it.
Fantastic. So now we have come to the very end. So thank you, everybody. It has been a collective experience, and every moment was valuable, and every person here helped us raise the bar. And we'll be in touch. Thank you all, and please have a great rest of the evening or day, wherever all of you are located. Thank you.
Thank you, Casey. Wonderful
Thank you.
evening. And Sharon, and let's continue for many future events. Sharon, you have the last word.
So maybe I'll just chime in a bit, just to say thank you to everybody who helped make this very first Asia time zone event a big success. So glad that so many of you stayed through to the end. And we actually, if anyone wants to stay on a little bit longer, that would be great too. I'll just say that this really just wasn't a conversation about capital alone. It's about access, right? Access to the right relationships, the right partner, and the right contact, and the right founders and investors to get you to your next level. And so we wanted to maybe open, if anyone wants to stay for like 10 minutes, we can make this very informal. You can introduce yourselves. You could talk about what you're building and investing in and the one connection you're looking for. And leave your LinkedIn profiles too for everybody. Yeah, but the official program is ended.